someone that's standing on this trigger plate, that's an option. So it's kind of like what you like. So those are our 6 things that we have available to us with sensors and signals. And in here, we're going to roll with some motion sensors just so we can say, hey, anytime you're in Bloops's base here, and you're in this big freaking hangar, how can we ensure that no matter where you are in here, the lights only come on when you're in the hangar? And you can set up signal logic on switches that give you 6 different signals here. You can set up some. He's already set up this one here that says hangar lights. You turn this on and all the hangar lights go on. But it's more convenient to throw this on motion sensors because you don't have to access the P menu. You don't have to flip this over manually. We're going to make this automated. And anytime you can turn and use signal logic to automate things for you, it's going to make your life a whole lot easier. So we're going to go ahead and set up a motion sensor in this hangar. We're probably going to have to use more than one because this is a ginormous hangar, folks. Like if we take a look here, like this is my character standing right here. This is a massive hangar. Okay, so we're going to need to use more than one. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get set up, and we're going to go ahead and place more than one motion sensor in here. Now, when we talk about motion sensors, we want to get in here and we're going to set this for motion sensor. And it looks like there's already one up here. So let's just take a look at what that guy is doing. So anytime you're wondering what something does in this game, if you move your reticule over it, you'll see my crosshairs are directly over that motion sensor. And you see that this door already opens. So I already have an idea that this motion sensor is programmed to open up this hangar door. So I can access this and I can hit P. And the moment you do that, you are brought automatically, if you click on devices, you are brought automatically to that particular item that you hit P on. So here we have West Hangar Door. You'll see the motion sensor is set for West Hangar Door, and it has some degree of its field, the area that it is watching. So if I click on Interactive Setup here, you'll notice that we can now see what area this motion sensor watches. So it doesn't watch, it actually does watch a few blocks before the door. Okay, see the door shut? And at the moment I cross this, the door goes up. And if I walk in here a little bit, now I've made it through. Now for this example, we're going to set up a different motion sensor. The door one is actually really nice. It's only going to activate if you're within 3 or 4 blocks of the door, and it opens and closes just fine. But for the lights in here, we're going to want something a little bit more expansive. We want to say, regardless of where we are in the hangar, we want the lights to come on. Okay? So let's take a look at how we're going to do that. So first off, I'm going to get my motion sensors, or my sensor and signal block out. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to choose motion sensor from the list of available sensor and signals that I can pick. And up here at the top, I'm going to find the spot that I'm going to be able to select here to where I can really just take advantage of the depth of this hangar. I mean, this is a really big hangar. And we're probably going to have to use more than one. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is, this is kind of like the halfway point. I'm going to stick it on the wall back here. So this is kind of out of the way. Actually, it looks like it's going to be floating a little bit, but not right here. So let's just place it right here. And you have to be kind of careful when you place these, because if you look real closely, there's a little red dot on the top of the motion sensor, as it is pictured right here, right now. So right above that blue circle where the laser beam comes through, there's a little red dot. What I want to do is I want to have that red dot be on the bottom. So I'm going to rotate this. So that's rotation 1 and rotation 2. So now that little red dot is at the bottom. And I want to put it back up here at the top of the window. Or not window, but top of the wall. So there's my motion sensor. And what I'm going to do here is just get close to it and hit P. So you'll see that now we have my motion sensor here. I don't know if he already has a signal. He does have a signal sensor group. So we're going to go ahead and put our motion sensor into that signal sensor group. If you did not have one, you can always make a group by clicking the plus icon over here in the top left. And that's, I'm moving my mouse over right now. You can kind of see it turning on and off. We can click that. So add the group signal sensor. We click OK. And now it's in there. And I like to name my things. So it's not just enough for me to put it in the group. I like to name it. So we're going to name this. I like MS for motion sensor. So we're just going to MS dot. And we're just going to name this Hanger 1. This is the motion sensor that we're going to, the first one we're setting up. So we're going to MS Hanger 1. And we're also, this is just the name of the device. Now, when we go to the next tab over, this is where we really get into signal logic, and that is the name of the tab. We're going to click on signal logic, and this TX is transmit. Transmit signal, and we're going to give it a name. So think of this as like naming your wire. Okay, so we're going to name this wire when it gets activated. This is going to be called MS Hanger 1. So in anything I go to set up from now on, anything that gets activated by this motion sensor is going to come out of it as known, it's going to be known as MS Hanger 1. So I like to hit enter after I type my name in. I'm kind of paranoid about it taking, so to speak. So MS Hanger 1, I hit enter. And now what I'm going to do is go back to devices. And you'll notice that we have this interactive setup. I just like to, for simplicity's sake, take all this down to ones. So I just have this one little box. Okay? And I'm going to click on interactive setup. The goal that we're going for here, Modest Tom, is that we're going to make it so that all the lights in here turn on only when someone is within this pink box from this motion sensor, or from two motion sensors. This is actually going to be a little bit complicated to set up. This is probably a lot of introductory aspect for some people, but we're going to set up an OR gate, and I'm going to get a little bit more into that for specifics, but just know right now, anything inside this pink cube, when a player or a vessel operated by a player comes in here, all the lights are going to turn on. Now, in the bottom right-hand corner, it's kind of cut off by my t-shirt here on my webcam. It does say enlarge is left control and numpad, and shrink is left control alt and numpad. So what we're going to do, if you had put the little red dot on the motion sensor at the bottom, it's going to be exactly how it appears down below. Okay, with their 8, 4, 5, and 6. So you'll see here that if I'm going to back up all the way to the back of the hanger here, okay, and I'm going to start doing, let's take a look. If I do Control and 4, you're going to notice that the block's going to start expanding to the west of me here. So you see, as I do Control and 4, now the block that's going this way. So we're going to just kind of like max this out a little bit, and then we're going to do Control and 6 to have it go the other way, and we're going to do Control and 5 to bring it forward. So we can get a good idea of how much this is actually going to cover. And we want it to actually go all the way to us. Now, you see that this doesn't reach the entirety of the hanger. And this is what Bluth was saying. This is a rather large hanger. And he is not joking. This is a very large hanger. So this is why he had it on a toggle switch initially, because it would just be easier. But once you get this set up, you put the work in for it, this is actually going to be glorious when you get it all done. Alright, so we have expanded, we have brought this forward to us the most possible. Control 5 no longer brings this to me any closer. But what we can do is go ahead and level out the bottom and the top of it a little bit here. And we're just going to go up to the roof. So now we have a rather large section of this that says, this is the area that we're going to transmit our signal whenever someone is here. And we almost have, with just one motion sensor, the entirety of the hanger. We're just missing this little strip right here and a little strip by the door. Not a big deal. Okay, so once we have set up our field for our motion sensor, we can escape. And notice that now we have our values here for exactly what we configured. And this is very important. This is why I like interactive setup, because you can set up exactly what you want to watch for with your motion sensor. So anytime you're setting up motion sensor, just go into the interactive setup and set up your field that your motion sensor is going to be watching. Now, we name this MS Hanger 1. It's going to put out a signal here of MS Hanger 1. Now, and if we, I don't want to set up the rest of this just yet. We're going to go ahead and go into the section where we set up another motion sensor. So let's just set up another motion sensor here on the opposite side, because we know from looking over here that we managed to actually capture the entire left and right side of the hangar with just this motion sensor right here. And just to kind of recap on that, if I click interactive setup, you'll see that we have managed to get everything from the door over here on this side all the way over here, but we're missing this section. Okay, we are missing all of this right here to the door. So ideally, it's probably going to take us 3 motion sensors to fill the entire area of the hangar. So I'm just going to hit escape here real quick. So let's take a look here. If we come over here to the opposite side of the hangar and we look at where that motion sensor is, it's up here. Let's just take our motion sensor that we had and we're going to turn around. We're going to do an about face and we're going to go to the other side of the hangar. And we're going to stick this joker up on a wall so that it can watch what we're doing. Now, I generally don't like to stick a motion sensor to where it's kind of like free hanging in space. But right now, with the way Jay Randall has this, well, we can put it right here. This will actually be okay. We'll put it right here. So we're going to name this guy. Again, we're just hitting P on it to bring up our menu. Motion sensor. We're going to add it into our group, signal or sensors. And this lets us rename it. Okay, you can't rename an item unless it's already in a group. So here we are, motion sensor. We're just going to call this Hangar 2. Okay, so we got MS Hangar 1, MS Hangar 2. Again, we're just going to shrink all the display area or the capture area for this motion sensor. Okay, our signal logic is MS Hangar 2. Big fan of copy paste. I'm going to go back to devices and we're going to click interactive setup. This is where we get to draw that box out again. And we know that we only have to cover a little small strip right in front of it. Okay, we probably only just need to come out maybe 5 blocks is probably overkill. Like this is probably too much, but that's okay. And we're going to expand it to either side here so that we can get up close to the hangar door. Now, we don't necessarily need to go outside of the hangar door. We can, so that when the door opens, the lights are already on. So I'll actually push it outside of the hangar door just a little. And we'll move it all the way here to the opposite hangar door. We'll bring it forward a little bit more, and then we'll drop it down and up. And so now we have a really large area that this motion sensor will trigger on. So this is our second motion sensor. And you'll notice that this solves the problem of there not being enough. We have this area here was not covered in the first one, but now we have covered it with the second one. We have an overlap. So I'm just going to escape, and I'm going to hit escape again. So that's our second motion sensor. The next one we're actually going to put over here by this door because we're missing a few lines, a few rows of blocks over here. So what we could do is just kind of piggyback off the one that's already up here, but we're going to make our own because that one is just waiting for a door. And I'm not entirely sure which direction this one is facing, so we might have a bit of a surprise. But let's just place it, and we'll see what we get. So I'm going to hit P on this one. I'm going to assign it to a group. Now this icon here adds it to the last group. So if we've already been putting things in the motion sensor group, we can save a little time. We can press this button, and it'll automatically add it for me into the last group that I've been assigning things into. So here we have motion sensor. And we're just going to name this one motion sensor, or motion sensor.hangar 3. And we'll name that as the signal that it's going to output as well. So you'll notice that we have MS Hangar 1 outputting MS Hangar 1 signal, MS Hangar 2 signal, and MS Hangar 3 signal. This is very important. It's going to come up later, but I'll review that when we get there. So we're on our third motion sensor. Again, when we talk about motion sensors, we have to say what area the motion sensor is actually watching. Alright, so we're going to drag all this down to 1 just to bring it back down to its number 1 values, the very smallest area that it's going to look. And then we're going to click on interactive setup. Now when you put it on the ceiling like this, it kind of messes up the orientation of things. You kind of have to think to yourself, well, instead of coming forward to me, my 5 is now just going to bring me straight down. So here we go, Control 5. We're now watching straight down. But your left and your right are still going to behave the same. So So you'll see that we're going to go ahead and watch the left and the right. And in fact, I might actually want to do a little bit more because we're talking about the lights in the hangar. And then we'll go outside a little bit and then we'll bring it in. So this is now more than enough to guarantee that we have... Actually, let me just do a little bit more. There we go. I can now guarantee with 3 motion sensors that we have coverage across the entire hangar. Okay, so regardless of where someone may be in this hangar, they're either going to trigger motion sensor 1, motion sensor 2, or motion sensor 3. It's inevitable. It will happen because just how we have programmed our boxes to look at where people might be standing. And we have our signal here come out of MS Hangar 3. Now, if we come in here, this is where we start talking about the magic that happens. So far, we have determined that A, we are looking at motion sensors. B, vehicles and people that trigger our set area with the motion sensor will activate the signal. And when we talk about signal activation, we're talking about the signal logic. So MS Hangar 1, we have named this transmit signal MS Hangar 1. They don't necessarily need to be the same name. I could come in here and I can name this something else completely different. But I just like consistency. I know that MS Hangar 1 goes with MS Hangar 1. I know that 2 goes with 2. And I know that 3 goes with 3. So it helps my brain. Okay. Now, let's talk about these lights. So if I shrink all the categories by doing this little upward chevron, and I come in here to where it says light, and I look at what Bloops has already done. So this one here is his hangar lights. Yeah, so if we're looking at the lights, they are set to hangar lights right now. That was the signal logic he had specified, but we're actually going to work on changing this. Now, if we only had one motion sensor to cover an area, we could just directly come in here and say on, off. We could watch one motion sensor. But because this hangar is so large, we actually need to do a little bit extra to make sure that we are guaranteed to trigger the sensor as well as the signal coming out of the sensor to activate all these lights. And so this is a little bit advanced for your first look at signal logic, but if you just had like a single room, sure, you could just pick like MS Hangar 1. And in fact, let's just do that for simplicity's sake. Let me just show you. If we set all this to MS Hangar 1, so we're taking it off of his switch that he has set up. I'm just going to say everything here is MS Hangar 1, MS Hangar 1, and whatever else he might have had in here. Okay, so it looks like that was it. And my MS Hangar 1, if we look at devices, and we come in here to our motion sensing group. So let me look at my signal sensors, motion hangar 1. Okay, motion hangar 1 is only watching this area. We're missing this section here along the strip of the hangar, and we're also missing that little bit here by the door. Okay, so motion hangar 1 has most of the hangar, but it's not good enough. But if you notice, as soon as I cross over, what happens? All the lights come on. And that's what signal logic is good for. Is we say, hey, if anyone triggers this particular event, whether it's a light beam, a motion sensor, a lever, we're going to go ahead and follow that logic, that signal that's being output, and we can do things with it. And this is why it's glorious. So this is motion sensor 1. Now, I'm apparently starving because my character made a noise, so we'll need to eat some hamburgers. Luckily, I brought some with me. So let me go ahead and eat some hamburgers. And now we're going to look at how do we cover this entire hangar with a particular circuit. So let's take a look at how we're going to do that. Anytime that we're looking at the signal logic tab, you'll notice that we have a configure circuit box over here on the right hand side. And we can actually add in these advanced circuits. I'm going to go and tell you that this right here, this is advanced signal logic right here. We're going to dive right in and we're just going to take a look. We know that right now, for the simplest you can get is you define your signal. Your motion sensor has a signal. Okay? And as soon as we cross over in this area, all the lights come on. But because we have such a large area, we need to actually use some OR gates to handle this particular event. And I'm going to step off to the side. Tom, I will definitely let Jen know that you miss her. Jen, Tom misses you.
Aww, I miss Tom.
You miss Tom? Yeah. Luckily, the Tom is on my Facebook, so I can see how I can make sure he's not dead. Alright, so let's talk about an OR gate. So when we take a look at signal logic, we have this whole area over here to the right hand side. This is all empty. We could say, and this is where we get into the advanced things, and I'll kind of describe this as we go down through the list so you kind of have an idea of what your options are. So when we say a 2 times AND, what this means is, if you can kind of think back to those movies you might have watched that had like 2 people, and they say, oh my goodness, in the case of a nuclear launch by the United States of America, 2 people have to put in their keys and simultaneously turn those keys. Okay? That is an AND circuit. That is exactly a 2 times AND circuit. 2 people put in their keys, they turn them, and then the nuclear missile can be launched. Okay? That is an AND circuit, a 2 times AND circuit. If one person just puts in their key and turns it, nothing's going to happen. But if 2 people do it and they turn it, then boom, that missile is going places. That nuclear launch will be detected and someone's going to be in a world of pain. Okay? That is a 2 times AND circuit. And if we were to click add circuit here, you will see that we get the parameters to add in what would need to happen. We don't want a 2 times AND circuit for this particular setup. What we want, and then a 4 times AND is just 4 different things that happen before something triggers. What we want is a 2 times OR. Actually, we want a 4 times OR because we have more than 2 motion sensors. So we can go up to a 4 times OR. We're going to click on add circuit. So here, first things first, we have to define what exactly happens. And an OR signal is like the 3-way switch in your house. You know that you can go over to another light switch and you can flip the switch and the light comes on. But you can walk down the hall into the other room and flip the switch and you can control the light from there too. So all an OR circuit is saying, hey, if we get a signal from any one of these components, turn that on. Okay? Whether you have 2, whether you have 4, as long as one of these 4 devices is outputting a signal, turn it on. So we're going to do a 4 times OR because we have 3 different motion sensors in this hangar. We want it to activate so that regardless of where someone is, motion sensor 1, motion sensor 2, motion sensor 3, that we're going to turn on the lights in the hangar for them so they're not in the dark. So we're going to leave this on 4 times OR, and we're going to come over here to the drop-down box, and this is where you put your signal in. Consequently, this is also where we put our motion sensors, where we set up our motion sensor signal. So we see motion sensor 1, motion sensor 2, motion sensor 3. Okay? And anytime you see XOR, like Bloop just mentioned there, anytime you see X, that means not. Okay, so that's a not OR. So that is also a possibility. It's like the opposite. So we're going to put MS Hangar 1, we can put MS Hangar 2, and we're going to do MS Hangar 3. Now, whenever you set up a circuit in this game and you classify what your particular inputs are, you have to give a different name to the output. So we're just going to name this one, and what I love to do in here is over here to the right hand side, whenever I have a final product, I'm going to name it just .sig. So here we have hangar.sig. So this is our final signal that we're going to watch. So if we take a look here and we go into the lights, okay, and we go down through the list. This one now was on MS Hangar 1. We're going to put it on Hangar Sig. And we're going to do the same thing for any of the lights that we want to have turn on when someone is in the hangar, hangar.sig. And you'll notice over here it says follow. I'll get to that in just a second. So right now, we're just setting up MS Hangar Sig on everything that's in the hangar. You already see the lights coming on. Okay, so that's it. So if we go here to Hangar Sig, and right now you have the options of follow, toggle, on, or off. Anytime you want a light or a motion sensor to, when the motion sensor detects someone and that person is physically in that square box, in that box that is designed by you, that is a follow. The moment they leave that area, it will then deactivate. That is a follow signal. Think of it as like following the player, or following the player inside their vessel. If we say toggle, the moment we come in, it toggles. The moment we leave, it toggles. This is not going to be the greatest thing for you because it's going to result in some complications with sometimes things being on, sometimes things being off. I like the follow. Anytime someone's there, you're guaranteed to have it on, and you're guaranteed to have it off. Okay? So most of the time when you do signal logic, it's going to be follow. Hands down. And then this little box over here to the side is invert. So right now, we would be following this as is. Okay? If someone's in the area, we're going to turn on the lights. If we invert, we are then telling the signal that we want the lights to be on when no one is here. If someone gets detected, we're going to turn off the lights. This is the exact opposite because it's the inverted version. Okay, so for this, we do not want to check the invert box. So we're going to leave this alone. It's hanger sig and it's follow. And you'll now notice that regardless of where I go in the hanger, the lights stay on. Okay, now, right now, they all went off right before the door shut. Okay, but right here, it detects me, they come on right before I roll up into the hanger. So right now, we don't have any more use for this specific switch he put in, so we can actually just clear this out. We're not using hanger lights anymore. We could reserve that for something else. But you'll notice, as I go around, it doesn't matter where I go in the hanger, one of those 3 motion sensors is detecting me, and it's transmitting a signal that says, yo, this guy Ekzim, he's running around in the hangar right now. We're going to keep the lights on for him. But the moment I leave the area, the moment I come over here to this door and I start to leave, depending on where I drew that border, the lights will go off. So here you go. Now the lights are off. And this is a big deal when you start considering about the power usage in a base. Because if we look at the P signal, or the P button, and we bring up the main information about your base, you only have so much fuel. You only have so much fuel capacity. The more you can build on signal logic to only turn something on when a player is there, the more energy efficient you can make your base. And this doesn't just apply to bases. It also applies to your capital vessels. It applies to your small vessels, your hover vessels, whatever it is you want to set up. Now, you can set up custom switches. And this is something else that's really nice. You'll see this in my capital vessel. I can go over there and show you what I've done there. But motion sensors are definitely one of the things you can do to make sure that, hey, we only turn the lights on when someone is right there. And if you ever want to learn more about signal logic, this isn't something that's just unique to this game. It's a very common concept in electrical engineering and computer science. You can just type in signal gates or logic gates into Google, and you'll get a very good, hopefully find a site that has diagrams. And they go through what and not and are, and or, and not or, and exclusive or, and exclusive not or, as well as inverter and all the rest of these. So if you want to take the time to learn more, you can. Okay? This stuff does tend to get a little bit complicated. I did show you an advanced circuit. It takes 3 motion sensors, but as anywhere that we are in this hangar, the lights will come on for us. And you might be like, oh, you know, lights don't take that much power. What's the big deal? Well, we can also go over here and we can take a look at the P. We can go to devices. And one of the great things about this game is that it automatically will tell you, if you just select anything in here, what power consumption is. So one of the big things in this game that takes power is things like constructors. And you'll notice that we have 3 constructors in this base. Now, where they are in the actual list here, let me see if I can find them. I really don't know where they are. They must be in the ungrouped thing, so we kind of need another group here. I like calling stuff where people do things stations. So I'm just going to make a stations group, and we're going to put some things in here. And we also looks like we need a containers group. So Bloops, I hope you don't mind. I'm gonna kind of fine tune your stuff here a little bit. So I like to have things make sure they get grouped. And we'll put some of these cargo boxes into the containers group. You put those in manually? Yeah. Cargo box. And the great thing is once you get something added into a group, you can name it. And I definitely like to have all my cargo boxes named because I like to have certain things that go in certain cargo boxes. So when you can name those cargo boxes, you let everybody know, not just yourself, what it is that goes into that cargo boxes. Could be things like, hey, put iron ingots in here. Or this is the input for the constructor. Or the output for the constructor. So it helps help everybody else know what that box is used for. So you don't get a lot of like extra crap dumped into your box. And it's nice when you have everything labeled out because then people have an idea of what that box is used for. So we're just putting in a couple more cargo boxes. I see a lot of refrigerators. Bloops will probably take out the ventilators because this is a planet that is oxygen friendly already. There isn't really a need to have O2 tanks here or ventilators. And so we did get all the containers. Now I do see some solar capacitors. We can put those into the solar group. And just trying to keep your list organized as much as possible. Even though all these fuel tanks, they can go into their own group. And it really makes a big difference when all of this is organized. So we can just say fuel tanks. We can start putting some of these in here, even though I think he's going to end up replacing a lot. Oh, there's already a fuel tanks group. So we can fix that. So fuel tanks, the one I just added, we can delete it with the minus sign. And there is the other one here. So we'll play nice by the rules that are already in here. Fuel tank. Add that one in there. And like I said, there's definitely more than a few fuel tanks in here. And it is tedious to set up, I'm not going to lie. It is very tedious to go through here and organize your stuff as you put things in. But it pays off. Dividends in the end when you have all your stuff grouped up. So then you can just access a group. You can set shortcuts up on groups. So that also is pretty nice. Now you don't need ventilators in a radiation storm. As long as your base is airtight, you're fine from all that. Time for me to eat another burger. And yeah, so always try to make sure that you set your groups up. And you see there's still 64 more items in here. It gets a little crazy if you ignore this. And you'll see that we have some O2 tanks and O2 ventilators already in here. So we can keep on adding in you know, a couple of these. But like I said, Bloops is going to take these out. O2 ventilators. I'll go ahead and just sort this up while I'm here. If there's any more O2 ventilators, there's one. Usually when you get a prefab, a lot of these should already be grouped for you. I'm kind of surprised that so many of this is labeled as being ungrouped. There's another ventilator down there and here. So as you build something, if you keep up with what you're adding in there and you throw it into a group, it makes it a lot easier for you to keep up with what's going on than it is to try to come back in a little later. And we have a lot of O2 tanks. So I'll just add those into the O2 tanks. And this will help drill down a lot on what we have in the ungroup category after we go through here. And I see a couple fridges. And that's okay. We can always put fridges into their own deal. You probably modified the build for a patch and forgot to regroup things. That's very possible. There is the auto group function here, which will try to find a group for it and put things into place. So you could always roll the dice and do auto group and see where it places things. But I like more control. I like to just manually put things in there. If I was just doing like a fresh build and I had forgot to keep up with all my stuff, then I would use the auto group and just have it place things in these different groups for me. But in the meantime, food processor would count as a station. So I'll just drop that in there. A repair console is a station. Advanced constructors are all stations. Furnace is a station. Let's see what else we have here. Armor locker is a station. Clone chamber. Armor locker. And I missed the O2 station here, so we can just O2 tank. Actually, no, that's the station, because it's the O2 station where someone gets oxygen back. You don't trust auto anything in an early access game? That's a decent point. And I see we got some turrets in here too, so he may have weaponry already, like in a group. Yeah, he already has a turret group, so we can add a few more. This cannon turret we can put into the turret group. Alright, so I think that's pretty much, oh, that's a turret. And I see some beds and some grow lights. There's another ventilator. So yeah, it just takes a little bit of time to go through all this stuff. But once you have it done, it's done. You don't have to worry about coming back in here and like fine-tuning things. Unless you add more stuff. But then you only have to count for the actual turret. And let's see, do we have a group for like fridges or anything? There's not a group for fridges, so we'll add a fridge group just because that's a really popular thing that gets added into a base. You always need to make sure you have food, and the refrigerator is the only way to preserve food. So I think that's all the fridges, and there's a lot of doors that aren't accounted for. So we'll just keep going through this as best as we can. I'm going to probably make like a decorations group. Make sure there's not something for this already. There's a lot of things in here like beds and stuff. So I'm just going to say decorations. And we're going to go crazy on all these things in here like beds and whatnot. And when I do build, I tend to miss out on a lot of the decorations. So it's nice to see that Jay Randall has taken the time to added beds and do all this stuff that makes it look like a real base instead of just like a square box, which is definitely what I'm guilty of when I build things. So yeah, we're down to just 14 on group things just that quick. There wasn't a whole lot, and we can still streamline this a little bit by going into doors. There's a lot of doors still, and there's some cargo boxes. So I think there's already like a containers. Yep. So a few of these like ammo boxes, and again, I don't mind putting them in my containers group. Bloops might feel a little differently. He might want those to go into like an ammo box group, but for the most part, that's pretty much it. And then I like grow lights in their group. It seems like we already have some, so we can just add these into the grow light group, and that's 2 more things out of the list. So now we're only left with 3, and realistically, a repair bay. That constitutes as a station, and so does this ATM. And then the wireless connection, this is an odd device. I typically put it along with like the core, or what I consider like core components. So I can just do like, I typically do like a catch-all group, like base components instead of just core, and then I can grab stuff like this. It doesn't really fit anywhere, and I can say, hey, you belong in the base components. So we have the core, and we'll just change this a little bit here. I'm just going to say core dash owned by Bloops, so people still know it's the core instead of just owned by Bloops. They might not know what that is. They might not be familiar with the icon for a core. And now we have a base that is now 100% organized off of the screen. Now the neat thing about this is if you're talking about setting up shortcuts, you can access the heading of a group, and you can say, hey, I want you to do something with like the signal logic or the devices. And I'm trying to see why it's not giving me that option right now. It might be something that actually requires. Let's look at turrets. Yeah, so turrets. You can set up a shortcut on your base. and you can say, hey, if I do custom 1 through 6, let me go ahead and, I can turn on or off all my weaponry all at once. So that gets kind of handy. What else can I do signal logic for in here? We got the hangars. The constructors are a big energy drain. There's only 3 constructors, and you know what? Just for grins, we're gonna say 1, 2, and 3. I don't like things with the same name being in the devices list. I like to have them uniquely identified, if you will. And you'll notice that 1, 2, and 3 have no signal. We're gonna go find where these are at, and we can do that by clicking Show on HUD here. And it's going to take us, see right here, it says Advanced Constructor number 3. We can then go right over to it. And this is one of those really awesome features that I really enjoy with the game. As far as, like, you might not be sure where something is, especially if you import a template from the Steam Workshop. You might be like, I don't know where this dude put the generator at. Where is it at? You can then say, hey, show this to me. And so we have 4, 5, and 6 over here, but I don't know what's going on with 1, 2, and 3 because there's only 3 constructors. So this is kind of interesting. So, but yeah. So we have 4, 5, and 6. Bloop's saying, hey, you should match it to match the thing. So we'll say 4, and then we'll match the 5 here and the 6. So we'll make them all match what's stamped above them. But again, like I said, I don't know what happened to 1, 2, and 3. So 4, 5, and 6. And you can either say, hey, give me a pressure plate, or give me a motion sensor, or give me a toggle tab over here. So let's talk about how we set up a toggle tab. I love having my constructors on a toggle tab. And that's so I can flip the switch and I can walk away, and they still produce things for me, and then I just manually turn it off afterwards. So let's take a look here. I'm going to rename this. So this is number 1. And I'm just going to call it constructors.on. So this is a signal all by itself. It's like if we had put a motion sensor and then said, hey, whenever this motion sensor transmits a signal, we're going to call it XYZ. Except for now, we're just saying this toggle switch is now constructors.on. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up each one of these constructors to follow this signal. So if I go over here to signal logic, I'm on 4, 5, and 6 here. On or off, let's follow constructors.on. So there's follow, and constructors.on follow. And same thing here, constructors.on follow. So now, these constructors will only power on if someone actually comes over here to the menu and flips the switch and turns them on. And now you see they have a blue light in front of them. The moment I come in here and I say turn this off, they turn off. These constructors are no longer active. And you can see this when you hit P, you look at devices, and the activity is nothing. Okay, so he may or may not want to change that. That's how a lot of things are already around here for the Imagine Gaming faction for our bases. The other thing that you can do is you might have noticed in the space station is there was a lever on the floor. So let's talk about how we could set something up like that. So here we have this lever, or lever, however you want to pronounce it. I'm just going to say lever for now. And I typically like to put it in like the middle of the group. So here we have this lever. Right now it doesn't do anything. I can just sit here and flip this thing all day on and off, and it doesn't do anything. It's not programmed up yet to output a particular signal. But we could say, if anyone comes by and they either manually flip this switch, or they go over here to this lever on the floor and they turn this on, or they turn it off. Let's follow that signal. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set this up so that either one of these conditions works. And you might be like, oh, hey, Exim, that sounds a lot like what you're doing earlier with the 3 motion sensors. And you're exactly right. We're going to set up an OR gate. So first things first, we're going to name our lever. So we're going to go in devices. Here's our lever. It's an ungroup right now, so we actually can't name it until we give it a group. So we're going to add it to the group. And I always love having a signal or sensor group, just like this. And click OK, put it in there. And we can just do L dot. Hey, Tanya, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate it. Didn't know you were here, but if there's anything you might need, I've got over 300 hours playing Empyrion. Let me know if you get stuck on anything, if you have the game, or if you have any questions about the game, anything like that, just let me know. I'm here for you. And I appreciate your support very much and helping to grow my community. So thank you very much. Hope you're having a great Friday. And right now we're just in the middle of a signal logic tutorial. There's a couple people that have been wondering about how all this works. So we have this lever. We're going to name it. I like the syntax L dot. L tells me that this is a lever. It's very shorthand. You don't have a whole lot of space in here to type. So we're just going to do L, and we're going to say constructors, and this is 4, 5, and 6, I believe, is what we determined. So let me just double check that. 4, 5, and 6. Bloops might want to add 1, 2, and 3 in here at some point, but in the meantime, we're going to help them out with 4, 5, and 6. So I'll hit P on this and go right to it. So L constructors 4, 5, and 6. This is what we named our lever. It is also, I'm just going to copy this, Control C to copy the text. I'm going to come over here to signal logic, transmit signal. This is like naming our wire. We're going to name it lever constructors 4, 5, and 6. This is going to help us to identify in the signal logic dropdown that this is the lever that's going to help control constructors 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so we're just going to hit enter after that so it takes, and then we're going to escape. So this lever now has a transmit signal involved with it. And our P menu on the main tab, this toggle switch also has a named wire. If we flip this on, it follows constructors dot on. So what we want to do at this point is link these two together. We want to say, hey, either Ekzim ran over here and flipped the switch, or maybe he's somewhere else in the base and he just went into the P menu and turned constructors on. We want to start that crafting happening with our constructors. We want to go ahead and get that engaged. So how do we do that? And so that's what we're going to look at right now. So we're going to turn both of these off. And what we're going to need to do is set up another OR gate. So here we're going to go into signal logic. We already have one for all the hangar lights in the hangar here. We're going to need to add another one. Now this one's a little simpler. This was a 4 times OR. We could just do a 2 times OR. So we're going to say add a signal for a 2 times OR. This is saying Ekzim flipped the lever, or Ekzim flipped the toggle switch in the control panel. Oh, okay. So when we talk about an OR switch, Ekzim flipped the switch, or Ekzim did the toggle here in the signals panel. So regardless of which one we did, we're watching both events. As long as one of these is true, we will then begin turning our constructors on. So let me go back here to signal logic. We're going to add a 2 times OR. Click on add circuit. And so now we can start talking about what it takes to turn these constructors on. So our first OR event is L dot constructors 4, 5, and 6. This is that lever just put on the floor. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. The other part of the OR statement is that we did the toggle switch. So we have constructors dot on. So we can click this. So now the signal that we have, we're watching either the lever on the floor, or we're watching someone use a toggle switch in the control panel. And if one of these is true, what is the new signal name? So we're going to just name this constructors. If I could type today, constructors dot. And I don't have enough room for sig, but I always love to have the sig there because I know it's my final product. So I'm just going to take out some vowels in here just to help me out and see if I can't get a sig in there. So there we go. We abbreviate it down. We get constructor.sig, and I'm going to hit enter on there so it takes. And now I know that I can go over here to my constructors. There's only 3 of constructors. Constructor 4, 5, and 6. And instead of following this toggle switch, which is what we were initially set up for, we can now say, hey, follow constructors.sig, which is short for signal. And I'm going to do that on all of these right here. And what this is now going to do is, it doesn't matter now if Ekzim flips the switch. So if we look at these constructors here, let me just turn off my lamp here. If we flip the switch, you see all that come on. All that just activated, no problem. Hit F again, they all turn off. Or if Ekzim were to come in here to his main menu in the base and flip the switch on, now they're all on. And if I hit P again and I turn them off, now they're all off. You see that they dimmed out. So it doesn't matter how I did this, as long as I either hit the lever on the floor and switched it, just like this, or I went into my P menu and I turned it on, or I turned it off, I now can control this set of constructors 2 different ways. And so this is great. So whether you like to have people that play with you, or even yourself on a single player world, you come over and you flip the switch, you know, you can run around, you can derp around, do everything while your stuff is crafting, just as long as you remember to come back and hit the switch here, you know, physically come over to it. Or if you're a fan of, hey, as long as I'm anywhere near my base, like I can even be outside my base. So if I come over here, oh, here's your 1, 2, and 3 bloops. So you would need to put your 1, 2, and 3 over here. But if I were to leave, man, I got all turned around in here. This is the exit. I could even be outside the base or on top of the base. And as long as you're to where you can hit P against a structure of your base, you'll notice that I pulled up the name of the base here. I can still turn on or off my constructors right from here. So this is very powerful. And ideally, the whole reason why you want to go through this setup is to conserve power. And right now, it is actually daytime here on the planet where we're at. And if we take a look, I just added in the additional solar panels to bring bloops up to 15. 15 is the maximum amount of solar panels that you can have in a base. And if we look here at what he's got going on, we can go over here to the statistics tab, and we can say, hey, this is what he's getting for his solar power. So the current output is 343.44 PU, okay? And our average output. Now it's recommended that you let this run for a couple of day or night cycles so you get an idea of what you're